Actually, Suharto was right. I would have loved to speak in Bahasa Indonesia, but my Bahasa is very limited, so I had to do English. But before I begin my formal speech, first I want to thank Mulia Lubis, an old friend, distinguished lawyer, human rights lawyer, and ambassador, diplomat, for bringing me once again to Jogjakarta, and to the esteemed rector, thank you for honoring me with it, and old friend, Foreign Minister, Deputy Foreign Minister Arif Hafaz, thank you for your kind words. But when I listened to Mulia Lubis, I said, God, usually this kind of tribute to someone you do when the person is dead. And like during a funeral service, that you hear this kind. So I thought, well, I'm still alive. He's talking like I'm already dead. I have it, before I begin my formal speech, a bit of my personal association with Indonesia. That's not in the speech. I just want to do a note on that. I first became acquainted with what was Indonesia. It was in the late 60s. And it was a group of us that included someone who later died in combat, Nicolau Lobato, very famous, great leader. And I went to see the Indonesian consul at the time called Salangani. He had just arrived in Timor-Leste. I went to see him. That was in 1969 or 70, early 70, I don't remember the year. I went with a list of people, myself included, Nicolau Lobato included. We wanted to come to Indonesia. We are part of an emerging movement for independence. And with a list only to say we want to study in Indonesia. And the consul was a bit shocked. He didn't know me. I just walked into the consulate. And he only said, if you cross the border, we cannot help you here. You cross the border, we will receive you. And that's what he said. Very cool. So back then, all of us had great admiration for Indonesia, particularly its struggle for independence, its leadership of the Bandung Conference, Afro-Asia Conference, great admiration for Bung Karno, etc., etc. But I then took personal initiatives. I went to Kupang, but was only to primarily, I went to a group of people bringing the first sports and cultural groups from Portuguese Timor to Kupang. I met Gubernur El Tari, and we became friends, and he knew me well. And then we brought Indonesian cultural and sports groups from NTT to Portuguese Timor. In the first group came two artists, one called Judy and Marlise. And they were very popular. And they were there for several days, soccer, and so I was part of encouraging. I was very young, but I was there. And then another group came from Surabaya. The main person in the group was a singer called Ervina. I just remember Ervina. Ervina was more modern than Judy and Marlies. Judy and Marlies, they wear long sarong and very conservative. Ervina was already like a rock star, and she was wearing more like back then some miniskirt, and she was even more popular than the previous two. And I knew very well another consul came, the last one, Elias Tomodok. I would go almost every night to their home, but that at the time was not advisable because the Portuguese authorities were watching and was very suspicious of Indonesia. But I was not really terribly interested in talking with Elias Tomodok and his wife. I was more interested in Elizabeth Tomodok. Elizabeth Tomodok was their daughter. But every time I went to the house, the old man and his wife sat in the middle and separating us. And the old man just kept talking politics, and me and Elizabeth, we becoming frustrated. And then we stayed friends ever since. Elizabeth she lives in Bali. She was married, is married to a British lawyer in Hong Kong. That's when they met. They have so they live between Bali and Canada because her daughter was married and live in Canada. So we're still in touch. 50 years later, we're still in touch. And then I came first time to Jakarta in June '74 when I met Pak Malik. And when I was in Jakarta, I traveled in becak, which was very used in Jakarta at that time, until a year later, or a few years later, Governor Ali Sadikin dumped them in the river, very famous. And now you see becak. Last night I saw becak here in Jogjakarta, and I want to buy one for a souvenir. Yeah. Because I was driving and running around in becak, but also in scooter. I was very young, and I didn't know much about Jakarta. It was a very risky, dangerous, because I could have an accident. And I was alone. But before coming to Jakarta, I went to Kupang, again, to see Governor El Tari. And he is the one who paid my airfare to Jakarta. And then he assigned one of his agents, a sister called Luis Taoling, to accompany me. And he told Luis in front of me, go with Pak Ramos, look after him, don't let anyone mislead him. So Luis accompanied me to Jakarta, took me to a lodgement, a nice lodgement, paid only less than $10 a night, very clean, an old Dutch colonial building, house. But then Luis Taoling disappeared, and I never saw him during the whole time I was here. Of course, at that time, Kupang was a very boring place. So you come into Jakarta, full of temptations and sins. So Luis Taoling, and I was told he was a backing agent, but Luis Taoling was not very professional backing agent. He, instead of following me, he disappeared himself. And so who helped me ending up meeting with Adam Malik? Hari Kawilarang, at the time journalist with Sinar Harapan. We became friends. Agus Barengwan, journalist with Kompas. Then later I met, and George Alejandro, and Saban Siajian. These were the people in Jakarta who helped me, and so I circulated around. So that was, and the idea was to meet with Pak Malik to discuss the future of Timor. And it was Pak Malik who said, and in the future of independence, and he used the word after independence, Portuguese Timor will join ASEAN. So the notion or idea of joining ASEAN was way back June 74. And he offered to train Timorese in Deplu at that time. But of course, the rest you know, history changed. And it took another 24 years for Timor-Leste to achieve independence and Indonesia to achieve its second independence, its second liberation, and with this dramatic, fantastic transition from 98 to what it is today. And in 92, I wrote a speech for the European Parliament, which I delivered 22nd April 92. And I outlined some ideas of how we could resolve the Timor problem. And it was that speech part of what got me to win the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Committee mentioned that idea. And my idea was we should have a long period of transition that I call humanitarian phase, autonomy phase, and then a referendum. But in that, I will publish again this speech because what I said in 92 was this. This is a challenge to us, Timor-Leste, and to Indonesia. And I said that who knows what Indonesia will be 20 years from now. It could change beyond recognition. Then the idea of an independent East Timor for Indonesia is very normal. But also I said, and East Timorese living in conditions different from what it is now, how would they vote in a referendum after years of absence of violence, of pressure, and so on? So all of this happened as I visualized in my speech in 92. Anyway, these are just some introductory remarks. Thank you, Mulia, for this great introduction of mine, although I felt like I was dead. And thank you so much, Deputy Foreign Minister Arif. And he's one of the greatest Indonesian diplomats, and I always say, you know, Deplu, Indonesian Foreign Service, is one of the best trained in the world. Of many countries I know, I always study, and Indonesia is one of the very best. Particularly the Javanese. You're never able to read the mind of a Javanese. And they never say yes, they never say no. They're like born to be diplomats. And over the years, I always watch, observe different Americans, Europeans, Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, Arabs. The Indonesians are the most. And I have to say, in New York, over the years, when we were on opposite sides, I always maintained ongoing dialogue and polite and even respectful with Indonesian diplomats. They always treat me with respect. When we cross paths at the delegates' lounge at the UN in New York, in Geneva, and so on. So easy to be friends. Ali Alatas was the only one who made once a not very nice remark about me. But when I studied his remark, I said, he's actually right. When some journalist asked him a question about me, he said, Ramos-Horta is an unemployed agitator. And I said, yes, actually he's right. I don't have a job, so I'm not like, because a job means you're paid to do something. You know? Otherwise, if you're not paid, you do something because you're unemployed. And agitator, yeah, that's true, I confess. So, and over the years, I got to know Ali Alatas well. What an outstanding diplomat. When he passed away and there was a memorial service here in Jakarta, I couldn't attend, I was elsewhere. I asked our ambassador here now, Roberto Suarez, one of our great ambassadors, to come to deliver my comments. And the title was Ali Alatas, My Enemy, My Friend. Yeah, that was the title of the speech, and that's how I ended. With here, I have some members of our parliament who join us. They are sitting here. One of my advisors, Vicky Chon. Vicky, can you stand? Vicky is like our, in the presidency, he is our grandmother, and she looked after everybody. She speaks many endless languages. And our ambassador, I already mentioned, and many of the staff from the embassy, and Shine here, she's from West Timor, but she's also like Vicky is like our grandmother. Shine is like our mother. She's from NTT. She works with this great former governor of NTT, Victor Lasquadat, and his wife, Jullu, two great friends of Timor-Leste. So I now move to my more formal remarks. I don't call it a speech, I call it, actually, I call it a conversation. I don't like speeches. And I had some initial words in Bahasa to tell you, but I prefer not to because it can be embarrassing with my pronunciation. I only say that this is my fourth time in Jogjakarta, actually fifth time. The first time was in 2002, second time was 2012, third time 2017, but I came again, I was former president, I came again only to visit George Adijondro. He was in hospital and he no longer recognized me, and he was passing away. And but in this university the second time, and I thank you, Rector, for inviting me to honor me with that. And a friend of mine, former alumni from UGM, she couldn't be here. She was a graduate from UGM. She was right now in Singapore. She told me to say the following, the thing. UGM campus kerakyatan. Kerakyatan. She said they will like that. And her name is Oki Madasara. She is a writer. And so as I said, this is not a speech, it's only notes. So today we are going to exchange notes on the theme empowering communities, education, social entrepreneurship, and the peace. And I have to say, I have already familiarized with your initiative, Rector Academic Community Service Program, KKN-PPM, which combines academic excellence with learning for community empowerment. It is very inspiring and deserving of recognition and should be replicated globally and in particular in Timor-Leste. I'm looking into it, how we can replicate it in Timor-Leste. In my journey, my life journey through decades, it was God's hands that guided me through many storms, but at times I was gifted with favorable weather. In those long decades of daily engagement in the fight for the poor and the dispossessed, for social justice, for Timor-Leste self-determination, those years, decades formed my belief that the core conditions for enduring positive peace, because there is positive peace and negative peace. Negative peace is when parties in conflict end the war and the conflict, but through imposition, not really because of feelings, belief inside them. And then you have a positive peace. So I talk first about positive peace. The core conditions for enduring peace are people must be at the center of our concerns and policies. That's number one, which is also on the ASEAN vision. Inclusivity. Policies that have to be based on inclusivity, all-embracing, non-discriminatory laws and the policies. In multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious countries, every segment, every group must feel protected by the Constitution, by the laws, and the policies have to conform with the principles in the Constitution, and the allocation of resources in fair proportion. We must embrace and cherish diversity. And we actually, countries should think that have so much diversity, well, you should thank God for this blessing. It is His divine creation of a world with such rich ethnic, language, religious, cultural tapestry. Indonesia, very fortunate, blessed by God to have such a diverse people, hundreds of languages, hundreds of different cultures, and of course, countries need one or two official languages for identity and practical reasons that we all know. But let us embrace all other languages that may exist. And because in some countries, they don't understand, they try to make everybody think the same, everybody have to speak the same language, ban other languages, and so on. A language that dies is the last soul of ancestors that fly away from us. It's like, when UNESCO or a Minister of Education say such and such indigenous language no longer live, I would say it's like a soul flying away from the nation. Because a connection, a profound connection between the society, the country, its history with the past is lost. We must empower local communities. We must pursue active communication. Yeah, communication has to be two-way. Not always at the top, communicating decisions to the receivers. And you cannot allow active communication to break down. Communities must be the basis of decision-making. We must all strive to empower women at every level and every sector of governance. It is said that peace is not just the absence of war. That's obvious. And But this is not enough. Absence of war is not enough. Absence of war without any other aspect of what is peace is negative peace when it is imposed. For instance, you can live in a dictatorship. I imagine probably North Korea is the most peaceful country in the world. And you don't hear of any communal violence, you don't hear of, but that is, I would say, negative peace. Positive peace has to be present at home and in schools and all the communities. Because where there is high level of domestic violence, hidden at home, homes that are supposed to be haven of love and happiness, but there is no peace for the terrified mother, the woman in the house, the terrified child. Today, I would like to share with you a few reflections on what I believe to be inspirational leadership for social change. What does it truly mean to be an inspiring leader? More than a title of formal authority, true inspirational leadership consists in ability to ignite the flame of potential in others, mobilizing individuals and communities towards a common vision of a more just, inclusive, sustainable, peaceful future. Such leadership demands, first and foremost, empathy, the ability to listen and feel the struggles and hopes of those we wish to serve, especially the most vulnerable, disadvantaged, and marginalized. Second, it requires perseverance, resilience. The path of change is difficult. An inspiring leader must have the strength to persist, to rise after every fall, and to instill the same tenacity in others. Integrity is also essential. Trust is the foundation of any lasting movement. A leader must embody honesty, transparency, and fidelity to the principles, even if it is difficult and unpopular. Oh yes, we have had this experience all the time. It can be difficult, can be unpopular. A leader must be able to articulate a compelling vision for the future, free from conflict, poverty, injustice, but the vision must be grounded in a realistic understanding of the present and enforced with concrete, achievable steps and goals. It's about dreaming big but acting smart. Inspirational leadership is, above all, a community center. It is not about imposing solutions, it's about listening deeply to the communities, understanding their needs, inherent strengths, their traditional wisdom, and valuing local knowledge, empowering them to be the architects for their own transformation, equipping them with tools, skills, and opportunities so they can build their own path. In this spirit, Timor-Leste experience, as it moves toward full ASEAN membership, expected in October 2025, offers a unique and valuable perspective. Here I do a pause. I apologize to any of the interpreters for not following the script here, but to say, the fact that we able to join ASEAN today, after 24 years of conflict, it's not only a tribute to Timor-Leste, it's a tribute to Indonesia. Do not underestimate the courage, the empathy, the leadership Indonesia showed in being bigger, taller than revenge. Because Indonesia and as human beings, a collective of human beings, would have felt rejected in '99 and would have turned its back to Timor-Leste. No, Indonesia showed to be greater, taller than pettiness, and immediately embraced the new independent Timor-Leste. Indonesia was central in stabilizing our border, East Timor and West Timor. And Indonesia immediately accepted a hand of reconciliation and friendship extended by our great leader, the Sukarno of Timor-Leste, Xanana Gusmão. Xanana didn't study in Gadjah Mada. He studied in a very well-known university in Indonesia, maybe the best. He himself, he said, he graduated from Sipinang University. He did almost the normal PhD program because he spent 8 years. So if you do 3-4 years for a bachelor's degree and then master's plus PhD, altogether about 8 years. So he got PhD summa cum laude from Universitat Sipinang. Maybe one day Sipinang should give him an honors degree. And Xanana, he is one who once said, he learned to love the Indonesian people in Sipinang. These were his words. And he is the one who led the country into this process of first national reconciliation, healing among Timorese people, and a hand of friendship with Indonesia. And Indonesia showed how greater a country it is, how greater a society it is that accepted it. So the fact that now 26 or 27 October we are joining ASEAN, it is thanks to this, to Indonesia. And I have to say few more words. In 98, 99, we had a transition in Indonesia. Suharto ceded power, B.J. Habibie took over in extraordinarily complex, sensitive situation in Indonesia. But that man, B.J. Habibie, with audacity of a leader, with vision, decided two things. One, to move on with reformasi in Indonesia, and to move on with a resolution of the East Timor conflict. That's leadership, that is courage. But he was enabled, this was enabled by the TNI. In the circumstances of 98, 99, military usually intervened because it was total chaos in Indonesia, dangerous, and the military would intervene. But the TNI leadership showed that it understood also the need for Indonesia to change. Because B.J. Habibie was not an elected president, next to zero experience in politics. He was in 20 years in Germany, dealing with aeronautics, came back to Indonesia as a Minister of Science and Technology, and then later Vice President. So very uncommon background to lead a revolution, in the change that he did. And so not enough credit to B.J. Habibie and to TNI for enabling the peaceful transition, resolution of Timor conflict, and the democracy in Indonesia. If today we celebrate Indonesia as a dynamic democracy with all its imperfections, well, like almost every democracy in the world, with the exception of maybe the Nordics, democracies are imperfect and sometimes betrayed. That's why it gives rise to extremism in Europe. When democracy fails, democracy betrays. So, as I referred to, I didn't want to fail to say this. In Timor-Leste, we believe that social change emerges when local communities and academic institutions come together, engage in dialogue, and co-create solutions. We would propose that ASEAN recognize and strengthen leadership models rooted in local traditions, indigenous knowledge systems, and community reconciliation practices. Models such as what we have in Timor-Leste, Tarabando, and other traditional intergenerational dialogue circles should be acknowledged as effective tools for mediation, transformation, and social peace across diverse contexts. In my personal experience, the most effective social change initiatives are based on three interlinked pillars: education, social entrepreneurship, and peace. Education is not only about accumulating knowledge, but about liberating minds and consciousness. In Timor-Leste, after years of conflict, schools had been destroyed, thousands of children excluded from education. We understood that to rebuild the country, we had to rebuild education. We implemented school feeding programs to address the challenge of hunger, malnutrition, stunting, and ensuring that children stay in this classroom. A simple meal can mean the difference between learning and dropping out. In this context, we propose that ASEAN intensify efforts to connect its universities with local communities, creating an ASEAN network of universities for social transformation, with joint programs in digital literacy, social inclusion, climate justice, community entrepreneurship, in order to foster innovative partnerships in the green and blue economy. I move on, so I'm moving a bit faster, so I'm not reading the whole text. You might be confused if you're following it through the screen. Our youth anywhere are our greatest resource. It is obvious. We advocate within ASEAN for the creation of a young ASEAN program for transformative leadership based on community internships, intercultural exchange, and local innovation labs to form leaders who serve with ethics, vision, and empathy. And most profoundly, peace. Without peace, there can be no development, and that is obviously, it's so obvious. I already talked about reconciliation. Reconciliation must come from the heart and mind, and it requires political courage. One cannot pass a law, proclaim reconciliation. It doesn't happen. Reconciliation has to come from heart and mind. And from years and years of restraint, years of leadership, where the people, they listen to the leaders, they follow the leaders who do not preach anger, do not preach revenge, do not preach prejudices and about other communities. We can read, deviate a bit from the speech. If you read the war that happened in Rwanda in the 90s, what happened there? You read what happened in the Balkans, in Serbia, Bosnia. Well, it was a leadership problem. Reconciliation is an art, one that can be learned and transmitted. Thank you. Our challenge did not end with liberation. We then had to build a state, establish democratic institutions, rebuild the economy, and above all, heal the wounds of the past. We did. We led mobile health projects to reach communities. We invested in access to clean water. It's still almost insurmountable challenge. Freeing women and children from hours of daily water collection, reducing diseases. And I have to say, a few days ago, WHO announced that Timor-Leste is free of malaria. For centuries it was there. Hundreds of thousands of people across the world still die of malaria. Timor-Leste finally was declared after several years without a case. So it began in 2015, where only one case or two or no case at all. And then 2025, WHO declared Timor is finally free of malaria. So I jump. I return to your remarkable initiative, esteemed Rector. Your integration of education with community service is an exemplary model of how universities can lead social transformation. To the students, I encourage you to live this experience fully. Your presence, communities, listening, and your actions are very precious. Apply the principles of inspirational leadership, empathy, resilience, integrity, and a vision. Each of your gestures can create lasting impact. The world faces immense challenges. Our esteemed Deputy Prime Minister Aval just mentioned the challenges. We have a challenge of multi-dimensional poverty, economic and social inequalities, climate change, and the persistent conflicts almost everywhere. But we also possess great human capacity for innovation. Within ASEAN, inspirational leadership for social change must be that which dares to unite tradition and innovation, local wisdom, academic knowledge, youth and elders, communities and institutions. May Timor-Leste, even with its many challenges, remain a humble example of hope, reconstruction, transformative vision. The future belongs to those who dream and those who have the courage to work to make those dreams come true. May we continue working together with global solidarity to empower every community, transform lives. And I already discussed in passing with friends from UGM, a dream I have, and maybe if and when I meet with President Prabowo, I will share with him this dream. I did share already with Mahmoud Shanana. And the dream is that we, together, Timor-Leste and Indonesia, build a university that crossed the border, East and West Timor, in the area of Batu Gade, Mota Aing, Atambua, a university cross. An international university, an international standards university, dedicated primarily to science and technology, but focus on issues like how we human beings can better access water. Because in this world today, as you know, only 1% of fresh water existing in the planet is accessible to human beings. Only 1%. Some countries are very fortunate. Myanmar, for instance, no problems of water. Brazil, well, they have the great Amazon, but great areas of Brazil is dry. In the north, desert. And Eastern Indonesia is considered, and Eastern Indonesia and the Timor-Leste are considered, classified as water stress. The world population today is over 8 billion. Can we imagine the pressure on water by 1.5 billion Indians every single day? Or China and all other countries. So we must address this issue seriously. Food security. How can we grow food with less and less water? How to improve on renewable energy. I say, one of these days, solar energy might become obsolete. Technology is moving so fast, I wouldn't be surprised if few months, few years from now, the Chinese announce that they are putting an artificial sun in the space, an artificial thing that would capture the sun and beam to planet Earth, beam to China. Is that crazy? See what they have been doing, they have been achieving. And many other areas on diseases, tropical diseases and others. So these are the challenge, the invitation. And if Indonesia agrees, President Prabowo likes the idea, but even if he doesn't like, even if Shanana might not like the idea, I will pursue it privately with some university. Well, let's do it anyway, because I will find the money to do it. The symbolism of it. Two countries previously in conflict, one majority Muslim in the world, the other one 99.6% Catholic, come together, create this very unique university in the world, an international university that would invite students from around the world, academics from around the world, co-led by 1 or 2 universities from Timor-Leste, 1 or 2 universities from NTT, and from the rest of Indonesia. So that's I end. I have done this. I floated this idea at a seminar where I spoke at our university, Unteli, in Delhi, and I will keep talking a bit about it. And then eventually I present a formal concept, a formal proposal. I thank you, terima kasih, for listening to me, for inviting me to come. Thank you, Mulia. And we together, me and Mulia Lubis, we have been working to nominate Muhammadiyah and the Nahdlatul Ulama for the Nobel Peace Prize. We have done, I have done. I have promoted Nahdlatul Ulama Muhammadiyah for UNESCO Peace Prize and proposed for the Human Fraternity Award, which is a creation of Papa Francisco and the Grand Imam, Professor Tayeb of Al-Azhar, Cairo. I was a jury in it a few years ago. And now I work, often they call me for support, for advice. And so Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah got the award. I was there in Abu Dhabi when they received the award last year. And these two organizations richly deserve it. You know, one of my greatest regrets in life was I should have, and I didn't, I should have nominated B.J. Habibie for the Nobel Peace Prize. If anyone deserved, was him. I confess, never occurred to me, only years later. And, but you know, when B.J. Habibie passed away, Shanana was with him. It was 100% private, very intimate, but someone had a video. They filmed. It was not our side, the Indonesian side, film. Very moving scene of Shanana kissing the forehead of Habibie and Habibie blessing Shanana. And then I said, God, because I nominated several institutions, people in the past, they won the Peace Prize. And so I regret. And so I make it as my mission to do justice to B.J. Habibie and to recognize these two great institutions, Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama. I thank you and thank the university, UGM, for taking so many Timorese. 3,000 Timorese graduated from UGM. And many are here in the room, probably. I see some faces, they look like Timorese. And can you stand up? The Timorese were here. Obrigado. Terima kasih.